It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, live from Dallas. How you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, finally made the trip home, so it's good. This is my first time to be home in I think 15 months, which is a long time for me. So yeah. I'm glad to be home, seeing family. Certainly thrilled to be in Dallas in June. You guys never do change. It certainly is crazy hot. But I am glad to be here, and I'm certainly glad to talk some more Cowboys wide receivers with you.
Yeah, we are continuing our preview of training camp as we inch closer and closer. I know you're going to be out there in Oxnard, I believe, right, Landon?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's actually coming up in less than a month?
I think it's the 26th is the first date, or the 28th or something like that.
It's the first practice, right? But I think we have players reporting before that. So,
yeah. There's lots to talk about before then, for sure.
So we're going to talk about wide receivers today. And I think we're going to do, instead of just talking about how good is Amari Cooper and how good is CeeDee Lamb, you guys already know that. So the way that we can set this up is I've got a burning question for each player that I want you to answer, and we'll kind of go off that. So let's start with Amari. Are you concerned about the lower leg injuries that are starting to compile for Amari Cooper? He has not practiced at all this offseason. He had, foot surgery back in January. He's still not running. And the expectation is that he might not be ready for the start of camp. Are you concerned?
I mean, I feel like I would be more concerned if we hadn't been through all of this with Amari so much already. I certainly don't like it. And I certainly hate that it feels like he's constantly dealing with, some kind of something, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's obviously been able to kind of work through a lot of it and get through a lot of it. So I do think that there is hope there. I'm not as concerned with this, current ankle injury as much as just the kind of constant lower body injury problem.
That's the biggest one for me, right? Is that it's always something.
Yeah, and I think that's legitimate concern, and it kind of speaks to, look, Amari Cooper, when he's playing and when he's right, is one of the best wide receivers in football. I mean, he's arguably in the conversation for best route runner in football, period.
I think he is.
And so I think when he's there and everything's working, it's great. The problem is that it feels like there is definitely diminishing returns when he's dealing with a lower body injury. And that kind of contributes to some of the inconsistency that we've seen with him time to time. And when there's more lower body injuries, it begets more lower body injuries. It's just a kind of constant thing. So I have concerns about it because we need Amari and we need him to be healthy. But I also know that he's found a way. He's been dealing with this for almost his whole career, and he's found a way to produce throughout it. So it's just kind of par of the course with Amari. Mm-hmm. It's that you just know that he's not a guy that is gonna get you 85 receiving yards and a touchdown every single game kind of guy. He's I'll give you 230 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns in this game, 60 yards and no touchdowns this game. And, and that's not, obviously that's not something that you love to have in a guy that you've paid a lot of money. But at the same time, I think the Cowboys passing offense can support it because of all the other talent that's around him.
All right, so a couple things in Amari. So since I believe he entered the league, he has missed a grand total of 2 games in his career due to injuries. So this is not somebody who misses a lot of time. However, since 2019, he's dealt with a foot sprain, an ankle sprain, a quadricep strain, a knee sprain, a hamstring strain, and now a foot surgery. That's all in the last 2 years. So that part of it is concerning. He's also somebody that kind of knows how to play through these things, right? And it doesn't seem like the Cowboys are worried that he's going to be not ready for the start of week 1. I think he'll be fine. I think it's something to worth monitoring. And I will be concerned if he starts missing games and he starts missing a significant amount of time. Like if it's just one game every 3 months, then I'm not concerned. But if it's, hey, it's 4 games here, it's another 3 games, that's when I start to get worried. Next one, Michael Gallup. What if this is the year he breaks out? Like truly breaks out. Like this is the 1,200 yard, 13, 14 touchdown season. Then what do you do?
Well, it really puts you in a spot. It would be the most Cowboys thing ever if that happened, honestly.
Yes.
I think that the Cowboys are likely to consider approaching him, somewhere around mid-season, maybe even earlier, about a new contract if they think that they can do something that's beneficial to them before he hits the open market. And if they don't, and he has a breakout season, there's a chance that he. I mean, I actually am of the mind that I think that there's a chance that he comes back next year. Because
I'm as well.
Based solely on the way the market for wide receivers was this year, right? Mm-hmm. I just feel like if that's the numbers that we're talking about for that kind of class of wide receiver, signing Gallup if you want him is not impossible. If Gallup has a 1,200 yard, 13 touchdown season, though, then it becomes a lot more difficult. And suddenly he kind of becomes eligible for that top tier wide receiver in free agency. Yes, that's the key thing there. And when you're in that kind of tier, the rest of the market doesn't seem to have an effect. It's like you suddenly are in your own kind of price range, and you can get a lot more money, and that's kind of sort of what you saw with the market this year, with not just wide receivers but a lot of players. So
I don't understand the wide receiver market. Like it's one of these ones that it doesn't make sense to me that Kenny Golladay, who basically missed the entire season last year and is an awful route runner, gets $18 million per season, and then Juju Smith-Schuster gets $8 million. Like I know Golladay plays on the outside and Juju's mostly a slot receiver, but there's not a $10 million difference between those two players. And then there's somebody like Corey Davis who didn't break out until this year, didn't even really break out. It was somebody who was a number 2 option on a pretty low volume passing offense. All of a sudden he gets, $12.5 million per year from the Jets. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. So I have no idea what to expect from Michael Gallup's free agency. Like is somebody going to blow him away with like a wide receiver 1 offer? Or is he going to be another one of these guys that, hey, you're probably more of a number 2. We don't pay our number 2 receiver more than $8 to $10 million a year. So we're just not all that interested. I just have no feel at all for how it's going to work out for Gallup.
He's one of those guys who, he this season could determine he could be either one of those. And I think that's kind of a rare guy, like where if he had a breakout season this year, you could easily see a team convince themselves that he could be their number 1 receiver.
Yes.
I mean, we even talked about it, previous to last year, that Gallup was a guy who we thought that before CeeDee Lamb into the picture, that once Cooper's contract was done, that we thought we could just kind of plug into wide receiver 1 and then kind of see what happens next. And the thing that changed the course of his career here was this drafting CeeDee Lamb, was CeeDee Lamb falling to the Cowboys. Yes. Not so much anything that Gallup did. So Gallup is definitely, one of the kind of rare players this year that is up for a contract year who has produced previously in previous seasons recently. And that if, with one more solid year, could be a guy that, like I said, teams could convince themselves that he could be a number 1 and thereby, throw a ton of money his way.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Michael Gallup at the end of this year. Want to take a quick break, tell you guys about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action on Bet Online. Get all the latest news, odds, and info on all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. You can use our promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. My question for you is, Landon, when does he become the wide receiver 1 on this team?
I think it's this year.
I think it is too.
I think it's a question of when. I would imagine that, and look, I mean, the predictable way that this happens is that Cooper loses a game or two due to injury, and CeeDee Lamb becomes the focus of an offense for a game or two and just, blows it all up. So, yeah, I mean, I think that that's a possibility. It's just kind of a matter of when, So I would say I think it could happen as early as mid-season, but I would say that by the end of the season, it's likely that CeeDee Lamb is the focus of the passing offense.
I'm really interested what would happen if Amari was gone for a couple games. Like, would they move CeeDee Lamb to the outside receiver spot and then put somebody else in the slot? Would they want to keep CeeDee Lamb in the slot where he has already excelled? That's what I want to know, because if Lamb can go to the outside and dominate, that's when I think we really start having a conversation about, okay, would this team be better off moving on from Amari at the end of this year, re-signing Gallup, and then bringing in a slot receiver and saving, let's say, $8 million a year, right? I mean, because I think that's probably going to be the difference between Amari's contract, which pays him $20 million a year, and Gallup, who might get 12. If Lamb can do that, I think that's where things get a little dicey. But I agree. I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be an absolute star this year.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the reasoning behind them trying out people like Pollard in the slot, and and then also kind of the discussions we've heard about them moving Gallup around and trying to get him more in the slot. The idea is that you can't just pigeonhole. I mean, like Lamb didn't come into the league as specifically a slot only guy.
No.
I mean, he did play in the slot a little bit in college, but
it's just that was the open spot on this team.
Exactly. So, I think that if he's learned the outside positions, I have no doubt that he'll go out there and dominate the way he does on the inside. And they've already kind of made motions towards allowing for that by, like you said, moving Gallup inside, seeing it with Pollard move inside. I definitely think that what your hypothesis is about, potentially moving on from Cooper and then bringing in another slot receiver, that doesn't sound unreasonable to me.
I don't want them to do that, by the way. I don't want them to do that, because I think your advantage is having 3 dominant receivers that can all get open, right? Like I love the idea of Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb together, because CeeDee is so good at after the catch, and Amari is, I think, the best route runner in football. So I wouldn't want to break those guys up. I can just see a path for them doing so if they have to.
I agree. Like that, I agree on both points. That I don't necessarily desire that, but I could also see them doing that because team management situation.
That, like, again, if Amari's injuries do start to mount up and they said, hey, let's get out while we can, or that, I could also see that as a possibility. But again, we do not want that to happen, because Amari Cooper is really, really good, in case you forgot. Next one, Cedric Wilson. Would the Cowboys be wise to sign him to a contract extension right now?
Again, what makes this tough is that the market is so weird. And I think that if the Cowboys can get him on a cheap deal, for a couple more years, I certainly like the player. I certainly think he's underrated and kind of hidden in this Cowboys depth chart. And he's shown you that he's, can do something with the ball in his hand. He can get open. He can do, the little things you need as a wide receiver. Because he's been practicing that as he's been getting ready to be a part of the rotation. And then when he got his opportunities, he was a playmaker. And so, I think it depends on what the Cowboys' future is at the position. I think Cedric Wilson getting a second contract may have ties to how they feel about Gallup getting a second contract.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
So I think that it's an interesting question. I have to think that if Gallup leaves, they definitely re-sign Cedric Wilson. And I don't know that that's like the solution to the problem. I think they probably would still go out and get another wide receiver, but I think it definitely solidifies that you should hold on to Wilson for at least a little bit longer.
I just didn't know, like, would it be advantageous for the Cowboys to offer Wilson like a 3-year, $10 million deal right now? Because there's a chance he just doesn't get on the field at all this year if the Cowboys stay healthy. And then entering free agency, he's going to basically have no market, right? Because he has, as of right now, he has less than 200 or 250 career receiving yards. So this would be a way for Wilson to get paid and for the Cowboys to protect themselves a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes deal sense, right? Like in the fact that both would be interested in signing this deal. But I do think that it's also the Cowboys' willingness to do this is probably tied to trying to figure out exactly what they've got in Gallup and how much they want to spend there.
All right, next one. Semi Fehoko, the wide receiver that they drafted out of Stanford. Just how far away is he from helping this team on offense?
I think he's probably got a little ways a bit. I mean, I think, there's certainly the chance that you're going to see, you will likely see him at some point on the field playing offense this year, taking snaps.
Yes.
But I don't know that he's going to be a guy that they're going to be, he's not quite where Cedric Wilson is, right? Where like, I think Wilson's a guy that even despite all these other talented wide receivers, they like trying to get him on the field, and try to mix him in. I don't know that they're going to push that hard for Fehoko right away unless Fehoko takes several steps.
It probably would depend on what he does in special teams, right?
Yeah.
Like if he's contributing on special teams, then I think he might earn a couple, snaps per game on offense. But I could just as easy see him be not active at all.
I was just going to say, if he's active, then I would not be surprised if him getting snaps early, just because they have limited players there. So, I wouldn't be surprised there. I don't know if they're going to go out of their way, like I said, to kind of get him on the field specifically if he hasn't earned a spot in special teams and that sort of thing.
They're not going to design certain plays for Fehoko, right? Like you're not going to try to say, hey, we need to get him 4 touches a game. It's just not going to happen. If he earns those, if injuries happen, I think that's when he could see the field. But if everybody's healthy, I just don't see how he's on the field. I really don't.
Yeah, it's just too many receivers.
There's too many receivers, and there's 2 tight ends that you really, really like, right? You want to find snaps for Jarwin and Schultz. So let's say if something does happen to Amari, I think you would see more of 12 personnel, and that's not the worst thing in the world either, because those are 2 really talented players. So
I agree.
One more quick break so I can tell you guys about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get $10 off your next order. I also want to tell you guys about RockAuto.com. It's a family business serving auto parts to customers online for over 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand, specifications, and prices that you prefer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. All right, last one, Landon. Who is your favorite receiver on this roster outside of those top 5? Are you a Aaron Parker guy? You're TJ Vasher, Brandon Smith, Noah Brown? Which one do you want to see make the team?
I mean, I like Noah Brown. I mean, I think, for a guy who, his job is specifically 5th wide receiver, right?
Yes,
I mean, he's a guy who will mix it up on special teams. He'll mix it up as a blocker. He'll do kind of the dirty work stuff, but he can also, be a threat with the football in his hands. If you can give him the ball, he can, he's big and physical and fast. He can move. So I certainly, have some love for him. Brandon Smith is a guy that interests me a lot, and we talked about him. It's similar in that kind of role where I just feel good about the fact that I think that he could be that kind of guy who hangs on the bottom of the wide receiver roster because he can do a lot of things for you while he's developing as a wide receiver.
I agree.
And I just think he has great physical tools. He's tough. He's more than willing blocker. I have no doubts that he'll be a special team player that will be valuable just because of the way he plays the game and his physical stats. So I like those kind of bottom of the roster guys who, because there's just so much more opportunity to do other things other than be a wide receiver for wide receivers on this roster. The top 3 jobs are very well solidified. The 4th job is very well solidified, frankly. So if any of these other guys want to make the team or get on the field, they're going to need to be good at things other than just receiving. And I think that guys like Brandon Smith and Noah Brown kind of fit the bill of what you're looking for in that specific wide receiver spot.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. I do like Brandon Smith. I don't mind TJ Vasher. I think he's a year away. I actually think of those 3, I think Aaron Parker is actually the best prospect of them all.
Of the wide receiver, of being a wide receiver. Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
yes. Mm-hmm. But it's still Noah Brown for me. I was actually watching Noah Brown yesterday, and there was a play against Atlanta. It was a 3rd and 7 down the middle of the field. He just gets drilled. I mean, just absolutely drilled, hangs onto the ball. It's a first down for the Cowboys. There's just not many guys that can take that punishment, hold onto the ball, pop right up, and be ready for the next play. I think he is too good to be a wide receiver 5. I think he is. I think he should be a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4 for maybe a different passing offense. I think he's incredibly reliable. I think he's tough. He's just a good player that I don't think the Cowboys should move on from him in favor of anybody else in the roster. I don't.
And that's fair. I mean, I like I said, I like him too. So if he ends up being the guy that they end up keeping and they let all these other guys either become free agents or hopefully sneak them on a practice squad or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised because I mean they do have 5 very good wide receivers who are good specifically at the roles that they play on this team.
Yeah, last couple things before we head out. How much is it going to suck for the defensive backs trying to cover these receivers in training camp?
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
It's
we're going to find out real quick who can play and who can't.
Yeah, I mean, at least you'll know, because I have a feeling that if it's a lot like how the offensive line has been in previous years, right? Like if these guys can get a pass rush against Tyron Smith and Leo Collins, you feel pretty good about them. And I think now it's the wide receiver core that's kind of taken over that true litmus test for how good your defense is. If you could take these guys on, then you're probably ready for the league.
Like I'm really excited to see like Nashawn Wright against Michael Gallup. Like I want to see because I know that Wright would struggle against Amari Cooper because that's just a type of guy that he's never going to be good against. But these downfield threats that are a little bit bigger, more physical, can Nashawn Wright hang with Michael Gallup? I think that's really fascinating. Can Kelvin Joseph, who has all the athleticism in the world, can he stick with Amari Cooper? Can one of these guys, come into the slot and hang with CeeDee Lamb? This is easily the thing I'm the most excited to see in camp. And I think you can learn a lot from these one-on-one drills, just like at the Senior Bowl, right? Like you can learn a lot about the movement skills and the way these guys carry themselves and their confidence in the one-on-one drills. This is where I'm really, really excited to see. Last thing, is this the best wide receiver core in football?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think if you talk, top to bottom, I think it is. Like I said, you have 5 wide receivers who, I mean, it's not even just stacking talent. It's like, what are you actually asking these guys to do?
Yeah.
And I think, the top 3 guys are as good as any 3 in football. And then, Cedric Wilson and Noah Brown for what you asked them to do. While also being receiving threats, I think it doesn't get much better than that, right?
Nope, I agree. They are, and the good thing is it feels like everybody knows their role.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's any divas here at all. Like I don't think you're ever going to have Amari Cooper coming out and saying, "Hey, I need more targets," or CeeDee Lamb saying, "I should be the number 1 receiver." It's just not going to happen.
The only trash talk he does is in chess. If that
which
shows
is
you
awesome, which is
amazing.
incredible. Which
It's hilarious.
it's why I do love this wide receiver core. It seems like they're very quiet. They're all kind of cerebral. They all can play multiple positions, but they're all extremely tough and they're gamers. So really excited about this group. I'm fired up to talk about the tight ends. I'm not sure when we're going to do that, sometime this week, but I'm excited to get into that because I think we might be having some debates of what the Cowboys are going to do at tight end later this week. So make sure you guys are tuning in for that. You can follow the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Continue to follow Landon, my new co-host, at McCool BCB. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys, and I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys.